My name is Joichi Ito, and I'm the director of the MIT Media Lab, which is a lab at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and we do a lot of interdisciplinary work. We have about 800 people, 92 sponsors, and about $80 million a year budget. I think in order to change complex problems, we have to change our culture. We can't just change the rules. And I think the young children that are growing up today have grown up in a culture where we understand that climate change is a problem, that social inequity is a problem, that public health is hard. And so I think they understand not just rationally, but emotionally and from a values perspective what the problems are. And so I'm more confident that they will have a better sensibility for dealing with our new challenges than we do. One of the things that we are doing a lot of research in at MIT and other places are now showing is what we call adversarial AI. So we can basically generate image that looks like one thing, but the computer thinks is another thing. It's actually quite easy to attack AI system and make a stop sign look like a go sign, or to make a school bus look like a tank. And so there are going to be a lot of security issues, and also machines fail in unusual ways that are unpredictable. So you will always need some human to make sure that they're watching over the machine. The problem is the interface that we have right now, the human is watching over the machine, is not an interesting job. And so there has to be some kind of human-machine interaction that allows the human to check the machine's decisions and also help train the machine when the machine doesn't understand something. And so I think we're going to come up with a new interface. It may be that a single human is managing a group of vehicles, but we will always need, I think, humans in part of the loop, at least until we solve this adversarial AI problem. So I think some people obviously will lose their jobs because some types of roles machines will do better, but I think it will also create new jobs. I don't know when and how many, so there will be some suffering, I think. But I don't think you can own the new job unless you're part of the old job, because I think you learn a lot when you see. So for instance, drivers and transportation companies have a lot of expertise about transportation and management of those systems than the computer companies. And the computer companies will come up with statistical answers to how it might work, but it's really going to be the transportation companies that come up with the real solutions. And many of the people in these transportation companies will find and discover new types of jobs. I think one example is if you go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, before we had factories, we had this artisanal system where you had the master and the apprentice and the journeyman, and people were doing this job and they would live with the master, and you know the system. So what happened, and this is in my book, is that, or the new version of the book, is that some of these people realized that they could raise money and hire people and create factories. So the people who created the factories were actually some of the people who used to be in the old artisanal system. And so I think some of the people in the transportation industry will be the people who reinvent transportation and maybe completely rethink it, not just automating things, but completely rethinking the future of mobility. Because the other thing is you need the kind of creativity to say, do we actually need cars? What are we actually trying to do here? What are the needs of the customer? What's a completely different way to organize the design of a city so that transportation needs are different? So I think if you think broadly and say that people who are in the transportation business are really in the business of urban design and supply chain and understanding consumer needs and timing and things like that. There's all kinds of expertise in the transportation business, and I think the key is how can you turn some of that expertise into new kinds of services and products that we haven't even thought of yet. In a company where you are trying to organize a very structured system, often the leader is like the leader of a ship, and it's very much like a captain that's in charge, that figures out all of the orders and just tells everyone what to do. But in a complex, creative environment, I think a leader is much more like a gardener that is trying to create an environment where creativity and innovation occurs. And it's more about like being a disc jockey or a shaman than it is about being the captain of a ship. I think that in a democracy, and the role of media, for instance, is to keep power in check. And a democracy is about making sure that our politicians and others are doing their job in a fair and transparent way, and that the citizens, if you want to have an unpopular opinion, or you want to create an alternative party, or you're unhappy, those should be allowed. And if you don't allow privacy, you will never see a dissenting opinion or a change in the system. And so that's, I think, pretty fundamental, that citizens should have privacy and those in power should have transparency. The problem is, because of the way that society has evolved, most of the technology is used to collect data on poor people, to use the data to predict their likelihood of crime, to market things to them. And powerful people have found a way to not produce too much data, to retain their privacy, and have not created laws or products that face them. There are very few AI systems that measure the performance of judges, but there are many AI systems that measure the performance of criminals. And so we're seeing that I think the machines are pointed in the wrong direction. They should point up rather than down.